Laburnum for My Head 2009 is the collection of 8 short stories by Indian author Temsa Lau. The stories are about the lives of people from the vibrant and troubled region of Nagaland in northeast India. Temsa Lau, 25 October 1945 to 9 October 2022, was a Naga poet, fiction writer, and ethnographer from India. She was a professor of English at Northeastern Hill University (NEHU), from where she retired in 2010. She served as the director of the Northeast Zone Cultural Center between 1992 and 1997 on deputation from NEHU. She was awarded the Padma Shri Award for her contribution to literature and education. Her book Laburnum for My Head received the Sahitya Akademi Award for English writing in the short story category. Her works have been translated into Assamese, Bengali, French, German, Hindi, and Kannada. The collection brought its author the 2013 Sahitya Akademi Award for English, conferred by the Sahitya Akademi, India's National Academy of Letters. Laburnum for My Head, a strange obsession of a woman for laburnum flowers. Unable to successfully grow a laburnum plant on her garden during her lifetime, she wants to have one over her grave. Death of a hunter. A brave hunter, Imchanak, totters when the ghost of his prey haunts him, till he offers it a tuft of his hair as a prayer for forgiveness. The boy who sold an airfield. Pokenmong, the servant boy, by dint of his wit, sells an airfield to unsuspecting villagers. The letter. A letter found on a dead insurgent blurs the boundaries between him and an innocent villager, both struggling to make ends meet. 3 women. A woman's terrible secret comes full circle, changing her daughters and granddaughters' lives as well as her own. A simple question. An illiterate village woman's simple question rattles an army officer and forces him to set her husband free. Sunny. A young girl loses her lover in his fight for the motherland, leaving her a frightful legacy. Flight. A caterpillar finds wings. Every May something extraordinary happens in the new cemetery of the sleepy little town's laburnum tree, with buttery yellow blossoms, flowers over the spot where Lentina is buried. A brave hunter, Imchanak, totters when the ghost of his prey haunts him, till he offers it a tuft of his hair as a prayer for forgiveness. Pokenmong, the servant boy, by dint of his wit, sells an airfield to unsuspecting villagers. A letter found on a dead insurgent blurs the boundaries between him and an innocent villager, both struggling to make ends meet. A woman's terrible secret comes full circle, changing her daughters' and granddaughters' lives as well as her own. An illiterate village woman's simple question rattles an army officer and forces him to set her husband free. A young girl loses her lover in his fight for the motherland, leaving her a frightful legacy. And a caterpillar finds wings. From the mythical to the modern, Laburnum for My Head is a collection of short stories that embrace a gamut of emotions. Heartrending, witty and riddled with irony, the stories depict a deep understanding of the human condition. According to Role of Women and Environment in Temsa Lau's Laburnum for My Head, Kailash Kumara, Department of English, Wangcha Rajkumar Government College, Deomulli, District Tirap, Arunachal Pradesh, India in his article. Role of Women and Environment in Temsa Lau's Laburnum for My Head. Women and environment play significant role in Temsa Lau and R.S. Quo's Laburnum for My Head 2009. Women empowerment relates to giving women more power over their own life and the circumstances they are facing with. Empowering women is to empower them to break the traditional picture of perfect womanhood where patriarchy dominates and women get all the bad things in their life. Women through their self-assertion contribute greatly towards women empowerment. It is this self-assertion of women that forms the core of Temsa Lau and R.S. Quo's collection of short stories entitled Laburnum for My Head, and this paper. Writers of literature has always been lured and urged by their physical and biological environment to manifest the beauties of nature in their creative endeavor. Temsa Lau and R.S. Quo's Laburnum for My Head showcases the correlation between literature and the physical and biological aspects of nature. This paper relates how an R.S. Quo's stance on women and environment in Laburnum for My Head by placing the stories in such diverse setting as ecology, environment, non-human animal, violence, bloodshed, marriage, motherhood, animal rights etc. Temsa Lau is an eminent author who belongs to the Indian state of Nagaland. A retired professor of English at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, India, she has worked as chairman of Nagaland State Women's Commission. The Government of India conferred upon her the in 2007 and the Sahitya Akademi Award in 2013. Besides 5 books of poetry, she has authored 2 collections of short stories. Her collection of short stories entitled Laburnum for My Head was published in the year 2009. No human development can be possible without harmonizing the relationship among plants, animals and man. Temsal Au, through her stories, establishes the need to protect nature, as well as recognize the significance of women in society. The present paper relates the significance of women's development, feminism, and environment through Temsal Au's collection of short stories entitled Laburnum for My Head, 2009. Feminism's main concern is with the representation in literature of the problem of inequality of women in society and their amelioration. Feminism becomes significant as it urges for women's culture, it desires for the self-assertion, autonomy and free will of women. Self-assertion of women enhances their confidence as they express their opinion freely. Elaine Showalter in her essay, Feminist Criticism in the Wilderness, affirms that the hypotheses of women's culture have been developed over the last decade, in order to get away from masculine systems, hierarchies, and values to get at the primary and self-defined nature of female cultural experience. Lodge, 321. Women through their self-assertion are empowered to do something positive in their life. The title story of Temsal Au's Laburnum for My Head provides a glimpse into the life and character of such a woman named Lentina. Lentina yearned for some laburnum bushes in her garden. The laburnum tree is known for its yellow flower. Lentina wanted these yellow flowers as for her these flowers denoted womanliness. The way the laburnum flowers hung their heads earthward appealed to her because she attributed humility to the gesture. Au, too. So, she decided to grow these flowers in her own garden. In spite of her best effort to grow the laburnum trees in her garden, she failed to do so due to one reason or the other. This made her crave more intensely for the yellow laburnum flowers whenever she saw them on highways and in gardens. Her family members began to speak about her passionate obsession for laburnum, which made her feel deeply upset. She did not like their apparent unconcern for natural environment around them. She could not understand their concern and was inwardly hurt by their seeming insensitivity to beauty around them. But she never gave up her hope of having a full-grown laburnum tree in her garden someday. Au. 3. When Lentina's husband died, her family members decided to bury him in the village graveyard as per the established custom. Lentina decided to accompany her husband on his last journey. Normally, women did not take part in the last rites at the graveyard. So, being a woman, it was quite a bold decision on the part of Lentina. While in the graveyard she looked at the stones set up at the grave of dead people. She thought about man's vain attempt to disobey, challenge death by inscribing names on the stones set up at the grave sites. She knew that these gravestones would neither bring the dead people back to life nor would give them immortality. The gravestones were the result of useless attempts made by the people to maintain the memory of their dead relatives. This they did by constructing huge structures in memory of their relatives. While doing so, these people competed against each other in terms of the size and style of the gravestones, as the author says. This consecrated ground has thus become choked with the specimens of human conceit. Au. 1. Therefore, Lentina decided that no headstones would be planted at her grave when she died. Instead, she would have laburnum tree planted on her grave, as the author says. All she had craved for was a spot to be buried where a laburnum tree would bloom every May. Au. 11. The laburnum tree would remain on her grave forever. Nature in the form of laburnum tree would abide there. It would outshine all the conceited structures raised in marble and granite. Lentina wished to grow a laburnum tree on her gravesite in her lifetime. She wanted to ensure that the tree blossomed before she was dead, as she says. I do not wish to be buried among the ridiculous stone monuments of the big cemetery. I need a place where there will be nothing but beautiful trees over my grave. Au. 7. Lentina's love for nature is reflected in her desire to grow laburnum trees on her grave. She seems to reject the idea of placing artificial headstones on human graves, as it symbolizes human conceit and pretentiousness. Her action calls for a change in our perception towards our environment and ecology. Lori Gruen observes, it is immediately important that we each change our own perspectives and those of society from death-oriented to life-oriented, from a linear, fragmented, and detached mindset to a more direct, holistic appreciation of subjective knowing. Gruen, 61. The second story of Temsal Au's Laburnum for My Head is, Death of a Hunter. Death of a Hunter, relates the interaction between nature, environment and human being and its repercussion on them. The story on the surface level narrates the life and hunting habit of a hunter named Mchanik. However, Death of a Hunter is much more than that. Nature pours down its fury in the form of wild animals such as elephant, monkey and wild boar, wreaking havoc in the life of Mchanik and his fellow villagers. These wild animals were so vicious in nature that they destroyed the agricultural land of the villagers, particularly the rice paddies of the village. First it was the elephant playing the role of a villain as it devastated several acres of farmland and people's houses, killing so many people. Mchanik along with his hunter friends shot the elephant. As the elephant lay dying, Mchanik looked into its unmoving eye that was devoid of any flash and shine. It appeared to him as if the elephant was moaning as he tried to have a peep in its small, round and bright eyes. The dying elephant was trying to communicate him some point which he failed to grasp, as the author proclaims. He would wonder forever because he thought he saw tears in those beady eyes and something else. It was as though the dying animal were trying to convey some message to his destroyer which remained frozen in time. This was to haunt Mchanik for a very long time. 23. Normally Mchanik used to have a sense of triumph whenever he killed a wild animal. But this time he failed to get pleasure though he had successfully eliminated the elephant. The reason could perhaps be that he did not like himself to be held responsible, guilty for killing those beautiful creatures of nature, as he questions his own action. But why did it have to be he who was placed, in this particular instance, at the center of the eternal contest between man and animal for dominion over the land? 23. Works cited. Kumar, K. 2020. Role of Women and Environment in Temsil Owl's Laburnum for My Head. Bulletin of Advanced English Studies, 511-7, 10.31559 by S 2020.5.1.1.